Welcome to
Tamarindo Podcast.
Hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delsy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos! Let's start the show!
Hello, Tamarindo listeners. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, listeners. It's so exciting to be back. Thank you all for waiting patiently for the return of Tamarindo. We feel refreshed.
I do. I feel really refreshed, but I also missed it.
Absolutely. I know. And, we need these breaks. And then the next, here we're back. But it is like so exciting because we have so many amazing episodes in store for y'all. So very excited to be back in your ears.
Yes, let's talk about today's episode really quickly so everybody can be excited. I'm excited. Today we interviewed activist, speaker, and marathoner Maria Solis Belizaire. You might know her as the founder and CEO of Latinos Run. So if you are a runner, if you enjoy getting outdoors, this is the episode for you. But before we talk about that, ¿qué pasa, Brenda? How have you been?
Well, as we shared, we kind of had a little bit of time to take a breather, but not much of a breather, right? Because we're cooking up some really exciting things. So I just want to take advantage of the top of this hour to let our listeners know of a very exciting announcement. Drum roll, please. We're doing another event at our favorite place to have events, which is the Pop Hop, a mission-driven, multi-use community arts and education space in Highland Park. We're partnering with them once more to host a live recording of Tamarindo. This is on June 20th with our very own, I say ours because it's like LA's treasure, LA's very own band, Las Cafeteras.
Hey, woo!
So listeners, if you haven't heard of Las Cafeteras, let me tell you a little bit more about them. Born and raised east of the Los Angeles River, Las Cafeteras are a sonic explosion of Afro-Mexican rhythms, electronic beats, and powerful rhymes. Y'all are going to love them. They're going to talk about their new album. So save the date. Once again, that's June 20th. And the way that you can get tickets to this is if you sign up for our newsletter. That is where we will announce it first. So if you are already signed up for our newsletter, great. You're going to be the first to have the link to RSVP because space is extremely limited. So yes, those are some of the que pasas that have been occurring during our break. And what about you, Delsy? ¿Qué pasa contigo?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about the things that I loved about podcasts when I am a listener of a podcast is that I get to learn a lot about the hosts and who it is that I'm listening to, who they are, and not just like the serious things, but the things that are funny and ridiculous about our lives. And so I thought it would be great if we could share a little bit more about us with listeners. And so we're going to play a game today. It's called Entre Nos, right? A little bit between us. And it's a segment that hopefully is recurring if we enjoy it, where we're going to do like a randomizer wheel of questions. And I'm going to ask you some pretty interesting questions, Brenda. And I hope that you and I can be as honest as we can possibly be with these.
And I get to ask you a few too, right?
You get to ask me a
Perfect.
few. Okay. Entonces, I think we'll get started and see question one. So here's the randomizer. There's a bunch of questions on here. I'm going to click it. I have no control over what happens with this question. It's going to Brenda first. Okay, let's see. Let's see what the universe wants you to tell the listeners today.
More drum rolls.
What's your guilty pleasure TV show or a movie that you're slightly embarrassed or maybe very embarrassed to admit that you love?
Okay. Gosh, this is tough. I have a hard time finding anything good to watch lately, but I would say what I've been indulging in, and I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure because it was well received, but right now I've been diving into Killing Eve. So no spoilers, y'all. If you have already watched this series, don't tell me how it ends. We're like soaking in all the seasons right now. And this was like a wildly successful show, but it feels like a guilty pleasure just because it's already so ridiculous. Like it's about a woman that works for like the UK's equivalent of the FBI,
Ooh.
and a an assassin, and somehow they have this very interesting love affair, even though it's like a cat and mouse situation. So I guess I categorize it as guilty pleasure because normally when I watch stuff like this that is just so outlandish, I like don't continue watching, but here I am, like just like we watch like 3 episodes a night. So that's what it is for me.
I love that. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, my turn. So I'm gonna press
Okay.
it. Let's
You're
see
gonna spin it
what
for me
I'm
on
gonna spin
behalf
it
of
for
like,
you.
yes. Okay, got it, got it, got it. Okay, so I've got the question for you, Delsy. Okay, if you could instantly become an expert in anything, what would it be and why?
Ooh, I would love to be an expert in physics. I think that in another life, I was a physicist, not in this life for many reasons, but I am obsessed with there is this man, his name is David Hoffman. He's working on current theories of time and space, but mostly centering consciousness as the next thing, the next big scientific breakthrough. He's actually a professor at, I believe it's UC Irvine. And I am obsessed with this, Brenda. Any free moment that I have, I'm like typing in, like trying to get information about weird theories of about consciousness and the world around us. I just find it to be so fascinating. And also, when I think of myself as really, really, really small, it makes life really easy to navigate because things are just not that important to me if I feel like I'm centering myself at the center of a massive universe. So I wish I woke up tomorrow and could tell you everything there is to know about this that we understand about planet Earth right now and beyond.
I have loved getting to know you better, Delsey, because we entered each other's orbits, to use sort of physics and language, knowing that you've got this awesome podcast about art and you're creative, and then I'm seeing the things that interest you, and you're also a scientist. Like you've got this scientist brain, and it's really fascinating. I Another question that your answer inspired for me to ask you is, do you believe in multiple dimensions? Is there like another dimension or multiple
Yeah.
dimensions beyond this one?
I definitely think so. I think there are a lot of them. And I think that one thing that's really interesting is that we, as three-dimensional people, have a very hard time understanding what we're looking at when we're seeing phenomenon that's coming from different dimensions that we may not understand. So it's super interesting to think about that. And I spend a lot of time wondering what a two-dimensional being, like a person on a deck of cards, might think of our three-dimensional world. And that helps me to understand where my blind spots might be in like a four-dimensional time and space world, right? So there's just a lot there. And if you're somebody who's listening and you're into this stuff, then you know how far the rabbit hole goes. And you kind of have to bring yourself out of it and back to daily life. But it is something that I thoroughly enjoy, that there's still mystery out there that we don't know, you know?
I love it. I love it. Okay, but we're going to solve the
Okay.
mystery behind running today, right?
Yes, we are. We're going to solve mystery behind running. Let's talk a little bit more about it because this was such a cool episode. The guest again was Maria Solis Belizaire, and she is like this powerhouse activist, speaker, marathoner. And one thing that's interesting about her is that she had a lot of challenges growing up, particularly with her mom who was incarcerated. And so the way that she dealt with that and the way that she coped with it was through running. And it made her realize that running was something that was healing, that was life-changing. And she wanted to make sure that everyone had access and everyone was represented in this world. And so she started Latinos Run and also Latinas Run. And we're going to hear from her now. It is my pleasure to welcome Maria Solis Belizaire to Tamarindo. How are you, Maria?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today
It
during
is
Women's History
such,
Month too.
yes, during Women's History Month. We were just talking about that, how awesome it is that it's such a busy time for folks that are involved in the community. How has that been for you and for Latinos Run?
Oh, it's been super busy for both of our organizations. We kind of like started something last year. We kicked off like doing more events during Women's History Month. And it's actually been super busy and very like successful for the community to come together. So I love seeing it. I love celebrating women. So this is amazing for me.
I'm so excited to hear it. I'd love to start off with just setting the groundwork. Tell us a little bit about your personal journey with running and at what point you decided to say, you know what, I think that this is something I'd like to do long term.
Well, my personal journey started actually really young. So my parents put me into soccer as a kid. And with soccer, you have to run. You don't have a choice. Now, did I love running as a kid? Absolutely not. Like having to do laps before practice was not the most fun. It was like the number one thing I dreaded. But because I was in soccer, the only reason why I made the team was because I was a fast runner. So there was something in me that said, I love running. When I used to be in like elementary school and stuff, just doing races, I would beat other people. So I was like, okay, I love running. And my dream was to be a runner. I didn't know what that was. I don't remember ever seeing like runners, on television. I was very young at the time, but my parents would take me to the track or just practice, racing after each other. And that kind of became a love, like as I was a young kid. So definitely didn't
Wow.
know I would be doing this today. Like, especially as a kid, did not know would be doing this. So
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing. So you are the founder of Latinos Run and Latinas Run, is that correct?
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how your personal journey influenced the mission and the vision of Latinos Run.
I think kind of like being left behind sometimes. Just when I first started running like amateur races in New York City, I was a lot older. So my dream of running kind of died out in high school years. And I think kind of getting back into it, telling somebody my story of wanting to be a runner when I was a kid, they introduced me into the actual sport of amateur racing. And I kind of just got into it. But when I used to attend events, I was left behind a lot of times. I didn't feel like it was a space for me. I wasn't a slow runner. I just wasn't what they would consider like a quintessential runner, like millennial runner. Like I didn't fit that narrative and I didn't feel like there was a space for me there. And that kind of got me like really into finding a community and finding a space, and that led me in a very different direction. I just went for the sport. I never knew that I would actually create a community out of that, just by joining events or joining spaces where I didn't feel like there was a place for me.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about what the benefits of running overall, right? Because if you're building community, I imagine that there's something there to the physical, mental, maybe spiritual elements of running. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think within our community, just in general, we tend to have less access to information, to healthcare. I think that having an outlet such as running, not only does it create community, it gives you a sense of being more empowered to get healthy. And I think that's something that the Latino community has started to understand, that there is a space for them here. And this is an outlet for people to kind of gather, share their experiences, share their culture with each other, and also find a healthy outlet. So I always ask people when they start, like, what made you get into running? And a lot of times it's like somebody had dealt with like something physical or something mental. They had a mental breakdown and running was an outlet for them. It was like medicine or going to therapy, but not having to pay a therapist. So, and I can't even tell you how many people have given me that answer, have told me that it really was an outlet, almost like therapy for them. And even reflecting back on my own, reasons for starting running, it really was just therapy, trying to find a community, trying to find a space, and also trying to get healthy. So it's really great to see that people use that as an outlet, and a free outlet too, because running can be free if you're joining community spaces.
I really like that you started this conversation talking about your experience as a Latina in these community spaces, maybe not seeing representation within the running community. For folks that haven't yet interacted with Latinos and Latinas Run, what can they expect? What kind of resources and supports do you offer?
Supportive community for one, sometimes sharing tips with each other, a safe space for people to connect. Like I said, sometimes sharing languages with somebody within their community, because oftentimes you go into spaces where people don't speak other languages. So encouragement, wellness advice, sometimes training plans. So there is a lot that you can get from it, and also free access to a community space.
So Latinos Run has really grown into an international organization. You've got diverse membership. Maybe you can discuss a little bit about why is this important? What is the importance of representation and community building in the running world?
So I think a lot of times people emulate what they see. And when they see somebody that looks like them, it really empowers them to kind of get involved, to know what it is. And when I initially started this sport, I didn't see a lot of people that look like me. And I didn't even start that long ago, like 2013, 14. And even to take it back even further, just like in the late 60s, early 70s, women were not allowed to participate in races alongside men. So just think about how insane that is, that not even that long ago, women had to dress up as men to participate in this sport and hope that they couldn't be seen. Nobody, hoping that nobody would see them and go, that's a woman, because they could be physically taken out of a race, which has happened. Catherine Switzer, it's just somebody to mention, who was physically attacked in a race because she was a woman trying to participate. So it's definitely something I've seen a huge shift in. Obviously, women have such a huge representation now in this sport. When I started, I felt like there weren't a lot of women participating, and especially a lot of Latinos. Probably 5 to 10% is all that we represent in this sport. So definitely seeing a huge gradual shift into seeing more women, to seeing more people of diverse backgrounds. It's really made the running community be more reflective of the country we live in, which is very important. And I definitely have seen that shift over just a few years. I started in 2013, doing like amateur races. So, it went from predominantly male running to now we're almost at the same exact point. Like we're almost equal with representation. So,
Wow, I have such an emotional reaction to
yeah.
hearing that we weren't able to run, and just the idea of building this community is so remarkable. I'm curious, tell us about your community. Tell us about the people who are your members. Like, what are these folks like, and what has been the impact that you've been able to see?
I think the biggest impact that I've been able to see is a huge shift and more Latino-led run organizations. Because when I started, I was just trying to find one, and it was just taking me Googling online if there's any Latinos runner like clubs in New York City. And the only reason I started it is because GoDaddy said, do you want to purchase the website latinosrun.com? Just me trying to find that community. Now, what I've seen since I've started it is a huge shift in Latino-led organizations. And that has honestly been a gradual shift over the last like 7 years, 8 years that I've seen that huge shift. So that's something that I feel like is really important for me, because now I start to see more people that look like me. Imagine going to an event, to a race, and being the only person of a diverse background at that race, and trying to find somebody that looks like you. And it's like being in a foreign country where you wave at somebody that you know is probably from the same background. That's what it's like going to these races and going, oh, there's another person of color. Hi. It's so uncomfortable to see that. But nowadays, you're starting to see that huge shift, and you're starting to see people that look like you because they're finding other people that look like them in advertisements, participating in these events. So it's definitely like shifted a lot, and it's definitely impacted our community to kind of grow and be more representative, in this space.
Yeah, I'm curious because you also started the sister company,
Yes.
Latinas Run, and I'm curious, what are the unique needs, unique challenges, and support systems that Latinas experience in the running community that you're trying to address?
When I started Latinos Run, immediately, literally, like immediately, women were like, when are you going to do a Latinas Run? We just want a space for women. We want to have a safe space to get together. We want a sisterhood. We want more visibility. And it's, I think, something that a lot of Latinas face when they're out in public spaces trying to participate in physical activities, not feeling safe. So definitely seeing like how women, like especially Latina women, want that safe space to kind of connect with each other and to feel like they have a sisterhood. I've definitely seen that unique need for that, for having that organization. So that was kind of like an immediate response to me opening Latinos Run within like a few days. It's like, when are you opening this? So, and also I've noticed over the years that women are like the force, like kind of like the power behind our organizations. They bring the families out. They're bringing tias and abuelas to come volunteer, and they're bringing the kids. They're dragging their husbands to these events. And I love seeing it. And I don't think people realize the power that Latina women have in this sport. It is just unbelievable if people actually really look to see who's bringing, family members to these events.
Oh, I'd love to go that direction. Let's talk about that impact. What role do you see Latinos Run playing in shaping the future of fitness and the future of the wellness industry?
Definitely having more visibility, definitely having more companies investing in women-led organizations. I hosted a run last night for Women's History Month, and with the event sponsor, I said to them, I went to one of your biggest events for New York City Marathon, and you had lined up in this huge, massive event space all the run clubs that you sponsor. And as I looked at it, I said, not one of them was a female-led run club. And I was completely shocked, like not one. And what a missed opportunity that was for them to elevate women, to elevate them in this space, to celebrate them as well. So I really feel like in the future, we'll start to see more women elevated in this space, and other people to understand the impact that women have in addition, like in this space. It's very important for me to see that, because right now it's still kind of like a high hill that we have to climb just to see representation. So I see some shift in that, but there's still a long way to go.
I'm curious to know a little bit more about some of the perseverance that comes with running, right? Because from my experience in just in dance and in movement meditation, anything that has to do with like this mind body connection can be really emotional and really cathartic. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the value that you see for the community overall when it comes to this sort of emotional expression of running.
I think the value is obviously shifting our statistics of health and wellness in general. We tend to have higher rates of many things: diabetes, heart disease, you name it, we're at the top of that list. And I think having this space for our community to come together kind of shifts the narrative and has us focus on intention and making sure that we are driving people into getting healthier and being more, in tune with wellness. It's very important within our community, and I'm sure you have seen, just as somebody, I think you said you were a dancer before, you've seen the impact in our community and the lack of resources that we have, and the importance of us kind of needing to get into the space to be healthier.
What advice would you give to folks that are thinking about starting a fitness journey? Maybe they're thinking about starting a social journey of meeting new people and they'd like to get involved with running, but maybe there's a little bit of intimidation. How
Right.
can we get started?
Just start. Don't listen to haters. That's the biggest thing I had in the beginning. People used to say comments like, Latinos don't work out, Latinos aren't fit. Like, it's such haters. And I'm like, block all the hate out. Like, I don't have time for it. Okay. Focus on yourself, have accountability for yourself. And my word of the year is celebrate. Celebrate yourself. It used to be about accountability. And yes, that's important, but so is celebrating who you are and where you are at that time. Whether you are not the fastest runner, it's okay. Whether you're leading from the back, even better, like even just as amazing. Celebrate who you are in this space. Don't listen to any negative things that people have to say. I started with an app that was couched to 5K. I barely could run 10 feet without like being out of breath. Once you take that initial step, you're kind of like on a mission, and you'll get better over time. Nothing comes overnight without hard work and dedication, but, celebrate where you are on that journey.
And if folks want to become involved with Latinos and Latinas Run, they want to support its mission, how can they get involved?
Follow us online, latinosrun.com, latinasrunclub.com. If you're not a Latino, we love having allies come to our events. We have a lot of people that support us just in person. that are not a part of the Latino community. And I love seeing it because it isn't always just about celebrating us as a community, but just celebrating the community as a whole together. So, come to our events, support our events any way you can, bring people out if you know other Latinos, and also I think elevate our stories is very important. If you know any Latinos that are doing something that is really impactful, that is empowering other people, elevate them, share their stories. That's very important for our community.
Thank you so much, Maria. I'm so inspired. You don't even know. As you're speaking, I'm like, oh, should I be running? Like, maybe I should get out there and make this happen. Thank you so much for sharing space and sharing time with us. And thank you for all the work that you're doing to elevate our community.
Oh, thank you so much. And I really appreciate, you inviting me to this space, because let me tell you, the moment I got the email, I have listened to so many of your podcasts already. I literally go to bed listening to podcasts every night, and I have listened to one after the other, And I'm like taking notes at 2 a.m, like just hearing it in my sleep, waking up going, that was very interesting, back to bed. So
I love it. Thank you so much for supporting us. That's super
of course.
helpful. And we're back. I hope that you enjoyed that interview with Maria. I really loved her energy. And I think what's really great about her is how much she wants to create this space for other Latinas to engage in the joy of running. And it made me want to go out and run, which is something that, full transparency, it's probably my most hated workout. But after speaking to her, I was like, man, maybe I need to like couch to 5K and get out there and make it happen. And
I love it. You know what? I'm into it. I'm into helping make that happen. Let's sign up for a 5K.
Let's do it. I'm in. Okay. All right. So why don't we talk about our matracas, Brenda? What is a matraca for you this week?
Okay, so my matraca this week, I'm so excited because it's been a while since we've received a love note, and we recently received a love note from a listener. So matraca to all the listeners out there, all the readers out there, all those people that take the time to give a little bit of love to the podcast you listen to, the books that you're reading, the small mom and pop places that you frequent. Y'all, it means so much, and we recognize that it takes a little extra energy to do this, so it just warms our heart. So I'm going to read a review. This is from, it says they're CCR 38. You never know exactly the names of the folks, but this listener says, as a Hispanic woman who grew up being spoken to in Spanish, but maneuvers in life thinking in English and speaking in Spanish, I love the mix on the show from the talented ladies. Love the stories and can relate to all of it. We are here listening. Emoji heart.
That's
it's
so
very
beautiful.
sweet. Yeah,
it's very
it's
sweet.
So sweet.
And I love that there's this kind of bilingual world that we come in and out of, and it doesn't really matter what your capacity or level of language is. Like, there's so much connection there just in being able to be fully authentically you. How cool. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so matraca to the person that took the time to do that, and this is an invitation for all of you to do the same. What is your matraca?
Okay, so my matraca is kind of following this organization, Latino Victory's recruitment plan. So Latino Victory is an influential civic engagement organization, and they have just announced a massive recruitment plan to elect more Afro-Latinas to office. And this initiative, the purpose is to build a pipeline with the goal of recruiting 50 Afro-Latinas into a training program by June 2025 to help them have access to the steps that it might take to be elected into office. Yes, this is what I am talking about. Matracas, the opportunity to not just have a seat at the table, but to come with a full support system, the way that we do culturally, right? A big support system with information. So I'm really excited, and shout out to Latino Victory for putting this together.
Yay. Yes, I love it. I love the intentional effort on Afro-Latinas specifically. So that's great. Hope to see some more women run. Okay, you want to hear my basura now? Because it's pretty
yes,
silly.
please. I'd love to hear your basura.
Okay, so the evolution of my relationship to my spouse has now become that we spend a lot of our time sending each other stories on Instagram or like videos that we like. And a lot of them are about dogs. We spend a lot of time sending each other little memes and little stories about dogs. And I've noticed a concerning trend that I just find so silly, and I'm going to throw in la basura. And this is that sometimes there'll be these videos of dogs, and dogs don't wear pants. You might know that dogs do not wear pants. And they will blur their private parts because, it cracks me up, and I just think it's so ridiculous. So basura to blurring the private parts of dogs and cats. Like, we understand that they don't wear pants. We've seen it before. This does not need to happen.
I am dying. We understand. The premise is set that they don't wear pants.
Right.
I can't believe that we've come this far with our like uptightness that we can't accept.
It is hilarious.
Oh my God. If that upsets them, then they don't want to go to the farms in Mexico.
Yeah. There might be things that are more concerning to literally blur out over there, but like,
Pues sí.
It's so funny.
All right.
Bueno, what is your basura?
My basura is it's a little more intense because I'm dealing with this right now. So my father is set to retire next year. I know we've talked about that on the show here, and he has been given this insane amount of paperwork that he has to sift through with all of this different information. He has to decide like how he's going to be compensated and when, and there are these hard deadlines, and it's this big life decision that basically like sets the stage for what the rest of his years will look like financially. And it's all in legal jargon, and it's all in English. And I'm like, what? Like, there's 37% of the people in this city that we're in right now are Spanish speakers. A big percentage of the people at my dad's job and in his department are native Spanish speakers. They don't offer this paperwork in other languages. I just can't understand. These are huge decisions. And they assign you like a liaison, and that person may not be Spanish speaking and may not get back to you. And so I am here now trying my best to translate this information and to help him make these decisions. But I want it to come from him and his own volition here. And, with my Spanish that tú sabes, Brenda, que no es perfecto, I'm here trying to explain these big concepts. So basura to this sort of like inflexibility when it comes to understanding Spanish as a second official language in this country.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that can feel your pain because now you're taking that on, right? You are now you're helping your parents navigate, your dad navigate this important step. You're not a financial planner, and of course, no matter how great and frequent your Spanish might be, who's going to know these terms that have to do with retirement? So yeah, that's a real pain and a real, challenge, and it kind of brings attention to this point of language access that really, when you think about justice and equity, when things are not in language, that is yet one more barrier that our communities have to overcome to access their own money. This is about how to access his own money.
Totally. And, for people out there probably thinking, oh, well, he should learn English, I just want to clear up. My father does speak English, but we're talking about massive legal paperwork. You want to understand it in your native tongue, right? Your native language. So, pues sí. Okay. Y vamos a inspiración, Brenda. What's like doing it for you? What's making you feel alive lately?
I'll let you know. So one of the gifts about being a Tamarindo podcast host is that we often get pitched books. So we get to read books. I know you have a copy of the book that we will be speaking about in a future episode when this book comes out, Tías and Primas by Prisca Dorcas Mojica Rodriguez. And I had in my mind that it would be wonderful to read this book at a park with a blanket and my dog. And I did that yesterday, and it just felt like so glorious and so it was like indulgent but not expensive. Like everybody can do this. Everybody can find, now that the days are a little longer, find a little patch of grass, get yourself a blanket, read a book. I happen to have done this in South Pasadena when they have their farmers market. So next time I do this, I'm going to come hungry and like get myself a little snack and do the exact same thing. My dog loved it. I was just like throwing the ball at her, reading a page, throwing the ball at her, reading a page. So I was very inspired by being able to do that. And I encourage all of you to take some time to do that as well.
I love that. And I love that Frida got to experience that and be outside. And I love that you use the word indulgent, because it does sometimes time, especially today in today's world, right? Time can feel really indulgent, like taking time for yourself. So I appreciate that you did that, especially on a beautiful day like yesterday.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, inspiración, let me tell you. So I shout out to one of my best friends, Jessica, who is a school counselor. And every semester she has to put together like some kind of professional development for the teachers and some kind of like wellness thing. And typically, in these situations, there's a lot of psychoeducation and PowerPoints and this. And she was like, we don't want to talk about wellness. We want them to experience it. So she went through all this like insane amounts of work that she put on herself to create this experience for teachers. And I got to host a paint and sip for them with mocktails.
Oh, that's okay. Obviously, we're going to hire you to do this for Tamarindo listeners.
Yes, I really loved it. It was my first time doing something like this. We did like a little palm tree scene and whatever, and we made these little mocktails, but just the engagement, the fun, the way people really connected. Like, it was time to go home already. And usually, teachers, they agarran sus cosas and they're out the door. But this time, like, people stayed and they were really into it. And I could just see almost like from a very basic place again, like foundationally, the power of art to soothe, to connect, and to bring joy. So for me, it was wonderful. Let's do it for Tamarindo listeners. And it was really cool. So inspiración, yay.
Yeah, that sounds so beautiful. Well, y'all, as you could tell, we're refreshed, right? We're here coming back to y'all like so refreshed, so inspired. There's so like we already know, because you and I already know the guests that are coming down, and y'all, we mean it. It is exciting. There's so many cool things coming down the pipeline. So if you love this show, don't forget to please share it with a friend. Hit that plus sign. Go to your Apple Podcast. There's like 3 little dots in the corner when you see a podcast that you like, and make sure you hit the plus sign and you subscribe. All of that is so important, and we really appreciate you all for doing that.
Yay. All right. Until next time.
Chao, pon tu suéter.
Y saludos a la familia.
Bye.
Bye.
Tamarindo Podcast is Brenda Gonzalez and Delsy Sandoval. We are also the show's executive producers. Karina Riveroll of Sonoro Media provides production support. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song. The best way to support our work is to rate and review Tamarindo Podcast or share an episode with a friend. Get in touch with us at tamarindopodcast.com.